Hello everyone, welcome to egate.ai. In this lecture, we are going to understand the difference between file system and database. So from this lecture onwards, when I say database, I'm mostly referring database of a database management system, like the structured storage of data, right? While technically or by definition, a file, anything stored inside a file or anything which is organized and storage of related data is database, right? But as I said, from this lecture onwards, when I say database, we are referring to a database of a database management system, basically structured database, right? Good. So we all have used file systems, and typical organization of file system is that inside a directory you create multiple files, right? And then you have file types, etc., which is not the context of this lecture. But yeah, I mean, inside the let's say if this is our directory, inside this directory or folder, you have files, right? Multiple files like this. And then we read a lot of differences between database and file system. While in database, you store data in very structured manner, like in form of tables, right? And then in these tables has relation, etc. So one thing which I wanted to discuss before I talk about these differences is that there is nothing in this world which you can do with database and you can't do with file system. Okay, everything which can be done by a database is also possible with file system. So if I write it, everything is possible. I can tell you sometimes even file system, choosing file system is much better. For instance, I had a situation where database was performing slower, okay, and we eventually ended up using file system, and that was basically a case where we wanted to log a lot of events in somewhere, and logging that into the file system was more efficient, right? So yes, I mean, sometimes file system is a better choice. So as I said, everything is possible, but now this might be appearing to you as a conflicting statement of what you have learned so far. So think about this, right? When you install database into your system, this database management system, like let's say MySQL, right? It creates a lot of files, right, in the installation directory, and whatever you store in the table format, table is a visual format which you see, right? But eventually all the data is going to be in some file, right? Now you can relate what I'm saying, right? So eventually this MySQL database system is also using file system, right? So everything is possible in the file system. You can write all the permission control, concurrency control, and everything, right? But if you do so with the file system, you will eventually end up building a new database management system, right? So that's why we save our time and we do not start with file system. While designing applications, we use some database systems, right? So this is the main difference analogy which you don't find in book, and I really wanted you to understand. So yeah, this is it. Now let's start understanding what is the difference between file system and database system by every property one by one. So starting with the organization of data, let me help you recall. The way you store data in the file system is more like you create directory. Inside the directory you might create another directory, right? So basically, and then eventually you have a file. So it's a hierarchical system, right? So here the file organization is hierarchical, while in the database management system, what you have is structured, more structured, right? So basically in terms of table, etc., which we just studied. Then let's talk about data retrieval. So here in the file system, like if you have done C programming, etc., you open the file and then you start reading file line by line, right? So here it is, the retrieval of data is basically sequential, right? But here you have a special language, that is structured query language, right? SQL. And using this SQL, you get a powerful mechanism to retrieve data from database management system, I mean from database, right? So So again, like this SQL gives you whole power to retrieve data the way you want, right? You need not go sequentially. So that's how we retrieve data in database, right? So what I written here, database, instead of database management system, actually what we are studying is database, difference between file system and database, not system, because again it becomes software, right? That's what we studied in the first lecture. So yeah, coming to the next thing, which is data integrity and consistency. So here in the file systems, you have basic data integrity, right? So that is handled with, let's say, file permission, right? Permission. But here you have really a good data integrity and consistency, and that is ensured by ACID property of database. We will understand ACID property in detail in concurrency control, but yeah, for now, let's understand. For now, just remember that here you have just basic control, as you know, like file permission, etc. But here you have advanced concurrency control and consistency mechanism basically. For the file system, you do not have concurrency control, or you can say you have very limited concurrency control in terms of file permission, etc. And there is a chance that you can end up with inconsistency. But here in this case, you do have a concurrency control mechanism, right? And we have a whole lot of chapter to read about this. So we do have concurrency control here. Next one is backup and recovery. For backup and recovery, what you have is basically here you just have, kind of copy paste mechanism, right? So, right. But here for you have defined a set of backup and recovery mechanism. Here you have also manual control over it, so you can also export, import databases into the database system, right? And at the same time, as I said, for any failed transaction or something which interrupts in between, you do have recovery mechanism which works really well. Again, for security, what we have here is, let me help you recall, you can define again file and directory permission. So if you remember chmod in Linux, right, you understand how you can control permission. Again, I can say that I do have some OS defined OS defined permissions here, right? But that's not super helpful. While in database management system, I do have a lot of security features. I can define granular level of security. So I can actually define different roles, and for different roles I can define set of permissions they can have. So I have granular control over here. Well, if I talk about data redundancy, you can guess that you do have option of data redundancy here. You can end up with a lot of redundancy in your file. So data redundancy is not controlled. While here in the database, you do have control mechanism like normalization. So these are the things which we will learn in detail. Again, we will learn different normal forms, but normalization is something which helps you control the redundancy. And then the last one is data relationship. So here we do not have any data relationship mechanism. So I'll just say no mechanism, right? While in the database management system, we do have it, like one of the example is foreign key. So between two tables, we can establish relationships. So this was the basic difference between file system and database. Now let us solve this problem. Which of the following statement best distinguishes a database management system, DBMS, from a traditional file system? Both DBMS and file system allow data storage. So this is true, but this is not something which is this question is asking. Like it is asking distinguishing feature, right? Then B is the file system provides better tool for data retrieval compared to a DBMS. So I do not agree. This is not true, right? And because this is not true, this is not a distinguishing feature, right? Then again, C is DBMS provides a mechanism for concurrency control while file system does not. So this sounds true, right? I mean, this is of course true. Uh, and this is also a distinguishing feature, right? So DBMS provides mechanism for concurrency control, right? While file system does not. So this is really a distinguishing feature, and this is true as well. So this should be the answer, but let us read the last one as well. File system typically support complex queries and transactions just like DBMS. So this is again not true, right? File system does not support complex queries, as we have just learned. So then the correct answer would be C. So I hope this lecture was useful, and in this lecture we just understood how file systems are different from database. So I hope you have liked it, and I'll see you in the next lecture. Thank you so much.